Stand-up comedy is the personification of science.
Thank you. Good night. My name is Harold Bay.
Hello, my name is Dr. Harold Bays, Medical Director and President of the Louisville Metabolic and Atherosclerosis Research Center located in Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome to this series of YouTube videos entitled The Science of Stand-Up. In this series of YouTube videos, I will be talking about the science of stand-up comedy. This first video will be an introduction. I will be talking about my bona fides. Often you hear a researcher who's done some stand-up, or you hear a stand-up comic who's done some clinical research. But a lot of times you wonder how much research have they really done and how much comedy have they really done? We're going to talk about that. Stand-up is the personification of science. It applies the principles of science into a person, as it relates to a person. And that involves neuroscience and molecular biology and communications, physiology, linguistics, performing arts. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, neurobiology, that's, nobody can understand that. Folks, neurobiology is not complicated. Let's say you're fixing Thanksgiving dinner and you see the food, you feel the food, hear it being made, and you taste it and you smell it and you get really hungry. And then you eat. And now you're not so hungry. Matter of fact, you're a little sleepy. Folks, that's neurobiology. It's not any more complicated than that. And the analogy to stand-up would be that the first stand-up comic I ever saw was in Louisville, Kentucky. It was Jay Leno. And I was, not only was I surprised and taken aback by the sheer impact he had upon that audience that was laughing so hard and such, but it was a little frightening that just a person with a mic could have that much influence over a crowd of people. Again, a little frightening. And if you think about it, how did this happen? Well, first off, there had to be a creative part where the art was created, the joke, for example. And then that had to be translated into a thought. And that thought had to be translated or transmitted through vision, through stage presence, as well as sound, like the resonance and articulation and the mic and the stand and these types of things, which then had to be heard by the audience and seen by the audience. And that ends up with an audience reaction. So again, all biology, all science. And to take it in the medical route, since I'm an endocrinologist, a physician, there was a headliner I was working with once who was having heart palpitations, so he wore what we call a Holter monitor. It monitors the heart rhythm throughout the day. And he happened to wear it on a Saturday evening. And during the middle show, the cardiologist, when he was interpreting the Holter monitor, goes, "What happened here at 9 o'clock on Saturday? Your heart rate was going crazy." Well, it turns out he had encountered a heckler. So again, a personification science. Other scientific disciplines are involved with stand-up as well, including entertainment science or economics or physiology, humanities, social sciences, political science, medicine, genetics. Some people have sense of humor, other people don't. A lot of that's genetics. But all of it applies to the science of stand-up. So what is my academic background? Well, as mentioned before, I'm medical director of a research facility and have been so for over 30 years. I've been a principal investigator for over 500 clinical trials. I've authored over 250 peer-review manuscripts. You can go on PubMed and put in my name and verify that. I presented at hundreds, if not thousands, of scientific conferences. I'm board certified in internal medicine, endocrinology, metabolism. I'm a diplomate of the American Board of Obesity Medicine as well as clinical lipidology. And I've served as board of directors on scientific organizations. I was the first to publish the concept of sick fat, or the adiposopathy as as a contributor to metabolic disease due to the obesity. Our research site's been acknowledged in the New York Times. Here you can see on April 3rd, 2005, our research site made front page of the New York Times. And it was just simply talking about the clinical research we were doing with anti-obesity agents. So it was our research site and the Pope in the front page of the New York Times. Regarding publications, it's not just the number of publications I've had, it's the quality of the journals for which I published. I published at least twice with regard to being a contributing author in the New England Journal of Medicine. And below you can see here is this article in circulation, where I'm not just reporting out clinical trials, I'm talking about statistics. So here you have alirocumab, decreased mortality, nominal significance, p-values, Bayesian statistics, and the duplicity of multiplicity. And this ended up being in the top 5% of all research outputs as scored by Altmetrics. With regard to my work experience, I started out as a busboy, moved up the corporate ladder to dishwasher, cook, ultimately became a janitor. Okay, so that was the pinnacle of my pre-medical school career. I was also a clerk and a cashier. The manager of the food mart for which I worked once told a colleague about me, he's just not like us. To this day, don't know what she means. Didn't know what she meant then, don't know what she means now. 1980, 1990, I was a musician. In 1988, 1998, I was a touring stand-up comic, mainly in the Midwest, South, Northeast. Didn't do much out West. It is possible that I could be the only janitor in who's who among students in American colleges and universities. I could be wrong on that. With regard to the music, one of the bands I was in was Blue Shoes in the Garden, and that originated from the fact that it was in vogue in the 1980s and 1990s to name your band something, something, and then something else, like Bob Marley and the Wailers, or Junior Walker and the All-Stars, or Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, or Elvis Costello and the Imposters. So we were Blue Shoes in the Garden. Blues because we play blues, and then shoes because we had lots of soul. That was the thinking. The garden came from our drummer. Our drummer would tell us how it is when he went to grade school. The grade school teachers would line up all the students who would daydream next to the windows. So that way they could just look out the windows and veg out. And that row of seats next to the window where the students could veg out was called the garden. So the name of our band was Blue Shoes and the Garden. I took this naming of the band concept a step further in some of my publications. Here's a publication in 2005, Adiposopathy, Metabolic Syndrome, Quantum Physics, General Relativity, Chaos, and the Theory of Everything. It's followed up in 2014, Adiposopathy, Sick Fat, Occam's Razor, and Resolution of the Obesity Paradox. So again, something, something, and then something else. So what is my stand-up experience? And I was concerned about the health of the nation. So there's the headshot there on the left. Right now, I continue to be medical director of a research facility, but at the time, I was the only stand-up endocrinologist in the world. I did do some publications. I wrote some articles for the Professional Comedy Newsletter. I don't have a copy of these. I don't know if they were ever published, but I sent them. I was told they were published. I was known as the health hack for any of you comics who have heard of this person. And here's chapter 2. I am Joanne's purulent sputum. So you can imagine how engaging that article was. Again, don't have the actual article. I just know that I wrote for them. Here's some examples of comedy clubs and performances. I worked the Zanies in Chicago, Rosemont, Nashville. Worked Punchlines, Atlanta, Greenville, Jacksonville. I did Hilarities, Charlie Goodnights, Comedy Connection, Crackers, Funny Farm here in Louisville, Kentucky, Comedy Off Broadway in Lexington. And then I did a number of smaller jobs, bars, colleges, private shows, and did a lot of benefits. Performed at the Kentucky Center of the Arts at one time, again, as a benefit. So here's probably the pinnacle of my comedy career. I headlined at Zanies in Chicago. Here's the table tent on the upper left. You can see here John Panette, Richard Lewis, Tommy Chong. They got big font. I was in the medium to small font region. I guess because I was less expensive, not sure. But you can see here Dr. Harold Bays, June 27th through July 2nd at Zanies. In the background is a newspaper article written about me. What's up, Doc? Physician operates on the comedy circuit. So kind of playing on that metaphor there. On the upper right, you can see here's the comedy benefit I did for the homeless intermittently for 10 years. I was a physician volunteer for the homeless, but also did comedy benefits. And then I would have these occasional quotes that the press seemed to like. This one said, "You're never more alone than when you're standing in front of 250 people in a comedy club." We're going to talk more about that later on. So ultimately, I had to make a decision. What's my future? Is it going to be stand-up, or am I going to gravitate towards my family and clinical research? So I chose family and clinical research. And I learned afterwards there's a disparity in professions. Let's just take law versus medicine, for example. Here's Washington, D.C. You've got these ornate columns, Roman columns and such. On the right, on the inside, where you got these, again, columns, very nice curtains, lots of wood, lots of really ornate wood. On the flip side, when it comes to medicine, a little different. So here's the FDA building, Food and Drug Administration building in White Oaks, Maryland. And I presented not just once, but twice in front of the FDA Advisory Committee regarding potential approval of pharmaceuticals. And again, a bit different when you talk about law building versus medicine buildings in our nation's capital. As you can see here on the left, that snappy 1970s decor where you walk in, you go through security, and then they take you outside. Rain or snow, it doesn't matter. You have to go outside into this other building, which is on the right. And here on the upper left is where the drug companies give their presentation. Right under the screen, it's hard to see, there's a round table where the physician advisors sit and the FDA sits. And then we have these plastic chairs, that's where the public sits. So I would be presenting on behalf of the pharmaceutical company on the upper left to determine whether or not these drugs were safe and effective enough to be approved. And I would answer questions and such. But again, I think you can notice a difference in the sense that as opposed to the ornate law buildings, what you find here are plastic chairs, remnant carpeting, and veneer-plated podium. So yes, I understand that we're told that Lady Justice is blind and, weighing everything equally, at least supposed to, but I'm not so sure she's blind when it comes to columns, wood, and as I said, remnant carpeting, plastic chairs. So what does it all mean? A lot of times I had physicians or scientists come up to me and say, I want to make my presentations better. How do I be funny? And what I tell them is what I will tell you. You don't have to be funny. Some of the best presentations I've ever heard, there wasn't a chuckle throughout the entire presentation. If you have good science and it's clinically applicable, you don't have to be funny. It's not necessary. But on the other hand, if you just really want to know more about the science of stand-up, well, then that's what these series of YouTube videos are for. Maybe you want to understand more of the science of stand-up. Maybe you want to do stand-up. Maybe you want to improve as a stand-up because you're already doing that. Perhaps you know somebody that's just interested in a stand-up comedy. I think that's what these YouTube videos are for. Maybe you know an academician in communications that would appreciate this content. Maybe you know somebody that's fascinated by the Voynich manuscript. Very challenging to figure out what the Voynich manuscript is all about. I think the same thing is true here. I mean, I know most people, when they make YouTube videos, they're very proud and they think their videos are going to go viral. My videos are not going to be going viral. They're not going to be going bacterial. They're not even going to be going fungal. Okay? My guess is it's going to be hundreds of years from now before a team of scientists will get together and look at these YouTube videos and try to figure out what they mean. Finally, if you're an executive of a multi-billion-dollar company, give me a call. I think I have ways to transform the preventive health care as we know it in the United States. I would like to collaborate regarding the new safe age. You've heard of the Bronze Age or the Contemporary Age or the Modern Age. I think we should be entering into a new age. We're going to be talking about that. And then finally, if you have an interest in a novel reality show, I got some ideas. Please click on the subscribe button to add this channel to your YouTube list of favorites. Click on the notification button if you want to be notified of new content. Click on the thumbs up button if you like the content. And click on the share button if you want to share this content via email or Twitter or Facebook. Because again, I think there are a lot of people out there that would really enjoy the kinds of topics that we're going to be talking about here in the science of stand-up. Now, finally, let me just say this. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with the comment section. I have some questions at the end of each of these videos for which I could use some help. So in the comments section, please take some time to answer these questions. Number one, is having a good sense of humor necessary to be successful and happy? Number two, what are currently the best comedy clubs in the United States, whether it be standalone or franchise or chain or brand or whatever? I knew what they were 30 years ago. I don't know what they are now. And I never did any West Coast clubs. And then finally, and lead into the next YouTube video, do the principles of stand-up adequately reconcile general relativity and quantum mechanics? So I want you to think about this, think about that in anticipation of the next video. So again, thank you. My name is Dr. Harold Bays, and you've been watching a YouTube video regarding the science of stand-up.